citywide, statewide, nationwide, worldwide. You are listening to the Three Man Rush Show. I am the Big O, Jerry Ostroski. She is Sara Larson, and you're listening on the Buffalo Rumblings Network. And it's been a while. We're excited to be back. We're excited to be back on a Super Bowl Sunday. Hopefully, one of these days, we'll be wearing our red, white, and
Yes.
blue, and we'll be anxiously awaiting a Bills Super Bowl victory. But hey, today's Three-Man Rush Show on Buffalo Rumblings Network brought to you by the good folks at Picasso's Pizza. And as always, we are presented by Picasso's Pizza. Treat yourself to the most flavorful and best pizza on game day. Picasso's, we are Buffalo's Pizza. You can ship them locally. You can get them nationwide. Order online at picassospizza.net. Sara, it is so good to see you. How are you?
I know. I'm doing better. I know I sent out a tweet the other day. I wasn't feeling well. Maybe it's a culmination of all the traveling, at the end of the season, all coming, piling upon me. But I'm doing better. Went and saw the doctor on Friday. So, pushing through.
It's funny. People don't understand. I mean, you travel a ton. It's hard on the body. I mean,
It
it's
is. It is. It's definitely exhausting mentally and physically. But I love it. Don't get me wrong. I love traveling. Traveling is probably the thing that I love, the most. And one day I want to be able to literally travel the world. Um, but I don't regret any of it. I've done it a couple years in a row now, and I'm pretty used to it. I did well this season. During the season, I only got sick once, and it was short lived. So it just like I said, once you finally get home and I spent a week and a half, and then I went to Mobile for the Senior Bowl. So it was
right.
like traveling again, and came home and. I knew things weren't quite right before I left, and came back and kind of fell on my ass a little bit. So
Yeah. It's funny how your body has a way of telling you, yo, sit down, stop a
yeah,
while.
yep.
Definitely. But hey, we're excited to bring to you a very heck, we got a packed show today. We're going to talk about some of the things that have gone on recently in the world of the NFL. We're going to talk about some coaching changes, some changes that might be happening soon, especially in Indianapolis. We'll talk a little bit about the awards show the other night and some of the awards that went out, the new Hall of Fame inductees. Of course, we got this like really important game today known as the Super Bowl. We'll talk about it. We'll get into the Senior Bowl. Sara spent a week at the Senior Bowl, as she said. She was down there with Spence, and I don't think that people understand uh, just what goes into that Senior Bowl week and just how much information you can gather from just a few practices and watching guys run around and those different things as far as doing skill work and 9-on-7 and 7-on-7 and everything. So we'll pick her brain about that. But let's get started with today's show, Sara. And where do you want to begin?
Well, I was just, the whole NFL news, more Bills news too. This morning we found out that Josh was not going to undergo surgery on his elbow, and just the rest, over the next couple of months. I jokingly tweeted he better stop playing golf then, because I definitely need Josh at 100% next year. Um, it's crazy to know that his UCL was partially torn, and it was a little bit worse than most of us had known. But he made a comment that the other day that it definitely impacted his ability to throw the same way. So it's one of those things. He still had 2,500 yards, 20 touchdowns after the injury. So I'm looking forward to a healthy Josh Allen heading into 2023.
I think the biggest thing with UCL injuries that people need to realize is a torn ligament's a torn ligament. I know they say partially torn. That means there's still some fibers connected, but it is still compromised. The thing is, the body has an amazing way of scarring up, having scar tissue laid down, and kind of creating a ligament-like effect. So when you start talking UCLs, you start talking years of rehabbing and being away. So I think Josh is in the situation where he's had this before. He's had probably a torn UCL for a bit. Had it in college. I know we've talked about it, but his body heals it up, it scars it up. He's able to play at a high level. Unfortunately, for a guy like Brock Purdy, and if you really want to follow a UCL injury and what it's going to take, I think it's been said that his is completely torn, and I
Yes.
think they're going to have to go ahead and repair that.
The end of the month, he's gonna have to
Yeah,
repair.
watch his timeline and just what he has to go through to come back. That's why if you're not a baseball pitcher, okay, and you have the ability to keep playing like Josh does, you do it until the thing goes away. So hopefully we hopefully we
Yeah.
quit worrying about Josh running and getting hurt. Let's figure out a way to protect him in the pocket so he doesn't get hurt. Because
Yeah.
that seems to be where he tends to get compromised as far as injury goes. So yeah, but that was good
Yeah.
news about Josh Allen.
Yeah, yeah. So and then we talked a little bit about the coaching changes. We've had a slew of head coaches, most notably Frank Wright and Sean Payton, I think are the two biggest ones. Frank heading to Carolina and Sean heading over to Denver. Um, I mean, and Denver is just going crazy, getting, Brian Flores is their defensive coordinator. There's just so much going on. I'm a little nervous about Denver. I think it'll take them a year to get on track, but I think that they're, on paper, they're a good team. But everyone in the East has made a change at either offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, except for the Bills. So it makes me a little nervous that we hung in there status quo. Um, there are still a couple of vacancies left. Indianapolis has their head coaching still vacant, but then again, they tweeted out this morning, and the NFL, sent out a news saying that they're targeting the offensive coordinator for the Philadelphia Eagles as their new head coach. And then Tampa Bay offensive coordinator, Washington Commanders offensive coordinator. There's been rumors that both Washington and Baltimore are looking for the Kansas City Chiefs offensive coordinator, which I still think he deserves a head coaching position. Um, but it'll be an interesting 2023 with all these changes. Are you kind of surprised, or is there anything that you were a little unexpected with as all these positions are starting to be filled?
No, Sarah. I think the biggest thing I'm probably, and I don't wouldn't say I'm irate, but of course, thank you ESPN, thank you probably Kansas City Chiefs in conjunction with the Colts. So we're going to go ahead and announce the morning before the most important game of the season that the Eagles offense coordinator, and I'm going to butcher his last name, so I apologize, but it's
That's why I
Shane.
didn't say
Is it Steichen? So yeah, I noticed that you were like offense coordinator. Um, Shane Steichen, I guess. I can't remember. But anyway, he's the
it.
target of the Colts um, as their head coach. That's fine. I wish they would just go ahead and somehow find a way uh, to not bring that up. But it's funny. I think there's a lot of jobs out there that are up for grabs. It looks like the Texans are going to hire the 49ers. Slowick is their new OC. No surprise there, seeing as that D'Amico Ryans is on that staff and out in San Francisco. He's bringing somebody that he's familiar with. Um, I think a big part of there's some things. I think there's still some sub stories out there. Like for instance, who's the new offense coordinator in Baltimore? Does that revolve around if their quarterback is back or not?
Right.
So there's things like that. I know there's an interesting story today. I don't know if you saw it, but Vic Fangio, who's on his way to Miami to be the
Miami.
defense coordinator, the Eagles signed him to a 2-week contract. So he's been working with the Eagles for the last 2 weeks
Really?
as a
I
defensive,
didn't know that.
as a defensive consultant to help them prepare for the Kansas City Chiefs. So lots and lots of espionage going on in the league. Um, I do think the Eric Bieniemy situation is something that's worthwhile to talk about anyway, or look at. I don't think that his contract will be renewed in Kansas City. I think he's up. I imagine
Yeah,
isn't he up
that's
for?
what
Yeah,
that's what they're saying. That's
yeah,
why they can do a lateral move without there being any
right,
issue.
right,
Kansas City objecting to it. So
right. I don't
I think
know.
my
I mean,
I think my biggest surprise, other than letting him go, I mean, Kansas City still had arguably, one of the best, if not the best offense. after losing their and I it's paining it's painful for me to actually start talking about a Kansas City team that I want to despise, but they played really well this year, even losing after losing their number one wide receiver. They brought in several rookies and made a splash. They have Pacheco at running back that ended up working out really well for them too. So I'm just interested in to seeing him be let go, but it might be up to him to decide, like, I want to go because I want an opportunity to show that I am the play caller. I am
Right.
making my name known, and something that's going to give him more of an opportunity, so that can become the head coach somewhere.
I
I
think the
hate the fact.
biggest thing, yeah. Go ahead, Sarah. I'm
No,
sorry.
I
I
was
didn't
gonna
mean
say I hate the fact that he still is getting overlooked. Um, but other than that, what I was just gonna say is that my surprise was Dallas letting go of Kellen Moore. I was actually really surprised that they had a decent offense, and after 1 year of, or maybe it was his second year, I think I can't remember right away, but for him to be let go was a little surprising to me.
No, Kellen's been there for a little bit.
I thought
He
he was a
actually was a
quarterback
yeah,
coach
he was a
first, and
player
then
there, quarterback coach brought up. They elevated him to OC so that he wouldn't leave. There were some places looking for him. He was kind of the hot assistant at the time.
yeah,
Um, and I want to touch on that in a second, but just real quick to rewind real fast to the Bieniemy situation. If Andy Reid was a defensive coach, I think maybe Bieniemy gets a shot sooner. But it's almost like I think people are holding him back because they believe he's successful because Andy's successful.
yeah, yep,
So does he have to go elsewhere away from Andy Reid? Is that fair? Probably not, but it's probably what he needs to do career wise, and have success elsewhere, and then move into that talks or whatever of being a head coach. But as far as Dallas goes, you have to understand Jerry Jones, and Jerry Jones is very, very, he's going to do what he has to do to make his decisions seem proper. So when he signed Dak Prescott to that big deal, he was betting on Dak being the quarterback that they needed him to be to get him back to the Super Bowl. So they have Kellen Moore, and you look at the offense, you look at Dak Prescott, his production, not where they want it, turns the ball over too much. There's games where he plays really, really well, but he has too many games where
yeah.
he lays an egg. So you go ahead and you have Mike McCarthy, who's your head coach, who's been an offensive play caller in the league, who's coached Aaron Rodgers and the likes. Um, Kellen Moore becomes a scapegoat in this situation.
Oh yeah,
To get Dak Prescott to really understand and see if Dak Prescott can be that quarterback, we've got to get him with somebody else. So now McCarthy's going to call the plays. Kellen Moore moves on. I mean, he gets fired and gets a job within 24 hours out in
mm,
San Diego, and actually, for all intents and purposes, trades up as far as talent goes at the quarterback
quarterback,
level.
yeah. Actually,
So,
and wide receiver too. I mean,
right, right,
obviously we don't know if Keenan Allen and Mike Williams will both be back, but
right.
he definitely has I think an upgraded roster. The question becomes, whether or not everyone remains healthy, and um it'll be interesting to see what Kellen can do if he goes there and still lays an egg. Then obviously, Dallas saw what I am not seeing. But
Well,
um,
Dallas is now in a make or break year.
mhm,
So if this doesn't work out, then McCarthy's gone. Dak is probably going next, and we go ahead and reload. So uh, a lot of pressure on that offensive side of the ball in Dallas this upcoming
right.
season.
All right. Well, on Thursday night, we had the NFL honors. Uh, Ironically, I had created this little graphic on Thursday before it aired, and instead of winner, I had a prediction going for all of these. And the one that I was wrong with was comeback player of the year. Geno Smith had a great year in the beginning of the year. I think the end of the year he kind of fell off a little bit, so I was a little surprised that he still won. I think Christian McCaffrey deserved it. I think that he showed, why San Francisco traded for him, and I definitely felt like him and Saquon both kind of had more of an argument for comeback player of the year than Geno, but congratulate Geno had, like I said, a great season. And he's probably going to get paid to be a starting quarterback in the NFL, which is kind of crazy to me. But good for him. And no other surprises, I think. The Jets are completely loaded with young talent. It pains me to say it, but they are. I don't know whether or not Nathaniel Hackett's going to do much for that offense, but I hope not. And then Coach of the Year, some people said that Sean McDermott was slighted. I don't think so. I think when you go into a season and you expect Super Bowl and you get knocked out in the second round. Yes, he had so much that he went, um, that went against him this year with, weather and the situation, not only with, Kim Pagula, but then with DeMar. He had to go through all that stuff with, our punter at the beginning of Riza at the beginning of the season, just so much adversity that I, felt like he deserved, the nod. But if you're not looking at that, if you're looking at more of the game aspect, Dable did something with the Giants that none of us thought he was going to do in the first year. And
Uh,
for them, they had an easier schedule, yes, but I he was deserving.
I unfortunately the Coach of the Year award's not given for compassion and empathy. It's given for wins and losses. And when you have a team that talented that kind of fades at the end of the season and loses in the second round of the playoffs, you don't deserve the Coach of the Year award. I have no problem with Diebold. I think that he did a wonderful job in New York. I also think that Peterson did a great job in Jacksonville and the likes. I think my biggest complaint, I don't know. I guess I mean, how can you? And we're going to talk about this in a little bit. We talk about the Super Bowl because I think it's what the game comes down to. But you give the MVP award to Mahomes. I just had I don't know if that's a kiss the ring thing or whatever. And I know he had a great year. I mean, he led in all kinds of statistical categories. But where are the Eagles without Jalen Hurts? That is, and I can't. God, it's like I'm having an out of body experience. I can't believe I'm saying that. Where are the Eagles without him? They're nowhere to be found. His play has elevated that football team to an amazing level. So, yeah, I mean, that's the only area that I was a little bit questionable about. The rest of it, some of it's popularity contest. I agree with you on the comeback player of the year. I thought Christian McCaffrey deserved it. I even thought Saquon Barkley deserved it over Geno.
Yeah, that's what I
I
said.
know
Both running
Geno,
backs.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know Geno's a feel good story and he's kind of a dinosaur and he's come back and all that. But man, it's hard for me to not pick those other two guys in that spot. But everything else is
Yeah.
pretty much status quo.
Yeah. How did you feel about the new Pro Bowl? Did you watch any of it?
Yeah, I watched some of it. I think it was fun. I mean, I really do believe that you have to somehow, some way, reward the guys that make All Pro. Um, back in the day, it was really, really nice to go to Hawaii. It kind of became a strain, I think, over the years. They kept kind of doing the same thing. Then they tried to reinvent it in the United States by going to warm weather states. Um, but it was fun. I mean, the
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that it did was like I have 12-year-old twins, right? If you're out there and they're doing like oh, I don't know, the old days where the guy's driving the golf cart across the field and they're throwing the ball, trying to hit the targets and all those different things, they probably look at the TV and turn around and run out. But when they saw that these men as big as me throwing water balloons back and forth to each other, and, and whoever could pass it most times won, I look over, they're sitting in the chair like they're looking at the TV like this is great,
Yeah.
So I think it did capture the imagination of a lot of the younger people, especially the kids, which is cool because we want kids to enjoy football. But in all actuality, it was kind of a waste of time.
Yeah, I mean, I have mixed, like a little bit mixed feelings. I like the new format with it being like little competitions.
Yeah,
I didn't like all of the competitions. I thought some of them were corny.
right.
Um,
Like
but I think that
where was the three-legged race in the freaking
yeah,
sack race,
like
right? Yeah,
yeah, right. But back in the day, I remember, and this is like I can't tell you a Pro Bowl that I remember in the last 20 years, but back in the day, they used to have the big men, strap the harnesses to them and, tow in a freaking,
Yeah,
18-wheeler,
yeah,
truck. And they
yeah.
had the, fastest man race. And then the
That would
quarterbacks
be cool.
would do the competitions.
Yeah.
I still like the competition aspect, and we did a lot of talking about this, you know, during the Pro Bowl. I still want the competition, aspect of it, but I want it to be fun. And I think that having everybody with their helmets off and joking and laughing, and that is something that you don't get to see normally. And as much as I watch football, there was a couple of players that I was cracking up laughing. I'm like, if I was walking down the street and I passed them, I would not know who they were because you don't ever see
Yeah.
them talking. And I'm like, I would have never known that such and such looked that way. And so I like the idea of, them having a good time and joking and I actually did only watched a little bit of the flag football game. I was flying back on Sunday, and then everything else started to happen when I got home. I was just dead tired, so I only watched a little bit, and more of the second half, and obviously some highlights and stuff. Some people have issues with it, but I'll tell you what, it got enough. I think enough viewership and enough people commenting about it that it'll be back that way next year as well.
What was it when we were kids? Battle of the Network Stars? Is that what it was when they went out and they ran the you had like all these different sports people and actors and stuff and they would
Yeah,
run the 100 and like you said, I think that'd be awesome, like tug of wars or
and
you know,
like we
get
joke.
up on the like those perch like the what was it like the old gladiators, like the old
Yep,
American
yep.
Gladiator show, like beat each other with those big
Right.
oversized
Still
Q-tips with a helmet on.
competitions,
Yes.
I
Yes.
don't need to see, an egg throwing contest or
Yeah.
or walking with an egg on a spoon. I don't
Yeah.
need that crap. But I
That'd be
think that,
cool.
like, if it still, leads you to the competition, and it still leads into something with,
Right.
the position that they play. We
Right.
joke all the time about who's the fastest man. Is it Cheetah, or is it,
Right.
whoever compares himself to him all the time? Or who throws farther? Is it Josh or is it Mahomes? Like, we go back and forth with all these questions and stuff. Put it to bed. I think it would be fun and
But I
interesting.
will say this. I will say this, Sarah. I would Bills fans would hate me because if I was Josh Allen, I would never be anywhere near that place because I would be at the AT&T on Pebble Beach every year.
Oh yeah, and I mean, like,
I
I
would
think
never do that deal.
honestly, he probably wouldn't have been there either. He probably would
Right.
have rather be in Arizona for the Super Bowl.
Right.
But so hopefully he doesn't have a question next year. Hopefully we're in Vegas for the
Right.
Super Bowl 58. So but yeah, I mean, I felt it was interesting. You had a couple players who were not, happy with the new format, and some called it corny and whatnot. But no one wants to see people, get hurt. And when the game doesn't matter, it really, why put your body at risk like that? So I'm
Yep.
glad they took the game away, the actual, physical game away. So that I'm actually happy about. But have a fun weekend. I don't think it should be spread out Thursday to Sunday. I think,
No.
Saturday and Sunday. Saturday, you go out and have, the stupid games that everyone's laughing about. And then on Sunday, have a flag football game,
Yeah.
and enjoy. So,
No, it was cool. I enjoyed it.
but yeah, so I mentioned that, I was coming back from the Senior Bowl on Sunday. Um, Definitely an amazing experience. Being able to not only watch the practices, but being able to talk to some of the players. Was really cool. I was a little in my head, I think, when I first, got there, thinking about, like, what do I ask? What do I do? But then I went back into the room for the second go around of interviews and stuff, and was able to actually talk to a couple of the players. And it was a fun experience, asking, a couple questions, hearing some stories. and they were nervous too. So it was you could tell that some of the players don't
Right.
get that attention, especially the smaller schools. So um it was definitely a fun experience. But I went in with some favorites to look at, and came out with a couple new favorites. And obviously we're going to be talking about these guys, heading into the combine and then heading into the draft. um the Senior Bowl, guys are going to stick out to me just because I got to see them. They're going to, the names are going to stick out. They're not all going to be the best players. They're not going to be all taken in the first round. Actually, most of them probably won't. The big thing about Senior Bowl is to up your stock. And some of these guys really did. Some of these guys were slated for second, third, fourth round, and there's a couple that they believe now has kind of pushed them into first and second round. So uh, it's definitely an experience. These guys went out and played their butts off on Saturday. It's one of those things that they know that they're playing for something. So whereas the Pro Bowl, we were just talking about, you're not playing for anything. This, they're playing for their livelihood at the next level. So um, definitely a great experience. I'm still going back and forth about whether or not the combine is going to happen. With me being sick this whole past week, not feeling up to it. I'm kind of a step behind of whether or not I'll go to the combine, but I'm definitely at the draft. But the combine, I think, is worthy of attendance. I've watched the combine um, for 20 plus years, and like maybe even longer now that I'm thinking about my age. And I've really gotten into it. So the opportunity with it being there, I'm excited. But definitely some interesting storylines throughout the week. The person I wanted to see the most um was Roshan Johnson, and unfortunately he broke his hand the first day. So he still played through it that whole day, but I wasn't able to see him day 2 or 3. So I was a little upset about that. But other than that, do you have any questions? Do you want to know my opinions on
Well,
anything?
my biggest thing is, and this is something I wanted to ask you, and I think that you now have gotten a inside view. Uh, Maybe some of the people that watch the show, some of the Bills Mafia faithful, the fans and stuff. You've gotten a view of things that those they do not get, and I don't think that anybody understands the amount of attention and pressure and almost lack of uh, I don't know what the word I want to use is intimacy or whatever, but it's the fact that everything you have, these kids walk out there and everything they have is now it's an open book. It's just out in the open. There are no, I mean, everything they do is scrutinized. How they walk, how they talk, how they
Yeah.
sit down, how they stand up, all these things, their accents, everything is just scrutinized to a level that nobody understands, right? And I think that now that you see it, it's like the amount of people that are at these places, these events to and evaluating talent and everything, it just goes to show you how crazy it is, and just how uh, I don't know, just how maybe the word that I want to use is evasive to a person. I mean, it's there are no secrets anymore. I mean, everybody is by the time this is over and you go to the combine and everything else, they're going to have a complete look at you on the inside, the
Yep.
outside, up you, down you, the whole 9 yards, right? So
Yeah.
I think that was probably the biggest thing. I mean, when you went in there, just the massive amounts of just information and just how in depth and how close you can get to these guys to evaluate talent to get ready for a draft.
Yeah. And it's, for the media breakfast, that they had a panel of 5 guys, at a time, but all the players were in there. So you could walk up and just start talking to whoever you
Right.
want. And then they would do so they did the national team and then the American team. Again, 5 guys, and then you can walk around and just and talk to, certain people. And it goes to show, like, the certain questions you have, the very, who do you model your playing style after? And then you have
Right.
the other people are, they ask Mouch, the offensive lineman, how did you lose your front teeth? And, like, so really, like, no question is off book, so it's definitely fun, but probably nerve-wracking for them because they probably don't know is there a wrong
Right.
answer in this moment.
Right.
So but it's like I said, it was definitely a really cool experience. I went into Mobile with, certain players that I wanted to watch out for. Definitely had people on my mind for the Bills. I put down at the ticker down at the bottom, some of the safeties and defensive backs, that, I definitely had caught my eye. For those people who don't watch the Senior Bowl, or don't really get into any of it, these are some names that you'll probably be hearing down the road. Darius Rush, he was voted the American team's safety of the well defensive back of the week, by the other players. So he was also the fastest. He was the fastest guy on the field all the time during practice, during the game. And I mean that legitimately. He was the fastest guy. They all wore technology to track every aspect of
Yeah.
the
GPS
practices and
monitors.
everything,
Yeah.
and how many yards they ran for the whole entire practice, how fast they went, miles per hour. For a defensive back, for him to be the fastest guy, said something. It really did. He's also a big guy. He's not, a 5'9", 170 pound defensive back. So the fact that he's, more lengthy, more heavy, and still running that fast.
Yep.
What intrigued me with him is every time we saw him go up against somebody, he was stride for stride. No matter how fast, no how whether it was from the slot, from the corner, or from the safety position, he played all of it. So he's just very, versatile. Would always One of the big things that I noticed with him is he could be going stride for stride downfield, and the wide receiver would make a cut. It's like he was in his head, like he knew to make the cut at the same time. He was just really, really on top of it. Um, he definitely upped his draft stock. Jamie Robinson from FSU. I have my ups and downs with him, obviously, as an FSU person, but he has upped his stock too. He was spectacular in special teams. So was Tyreek Stevenson. I have to put my FSU and my people together, so I can say one hateful thing and then one great thing. No, Stevenson actually. We sat next to, or I should say, I sat next to his parents on my flight back to Fort Lauderdale. Um, I kind of felt like it was them. There was a little bit inside of me that was like, uh, he had a Reese's Senior Bowl hat on, so I, made a joke, and then they made the comment that their son was in it, and I, was like, who's your son? And they were like, Stevenson. And I was like, oh, I went to huge fan. Tyreek, is going to do great things. He was a corner in college. I have a feeling that he'll probably play safety at the next level. So he's definitely someone in the later rounds, probably. Well, I would say mid rounds, probably fourth round. He might have upped his stock too, just because of his special teams play. Him and Robinson, they both had a spectacular down punt in the first half, where they ended up inside the one. It was, kind of, beautiful teamwork between the two of them. Very intriguing prospect there. Um, Chris Smith, I actually got a chance to talk to during the media day. So he's another person. He's Ohio State, so close to home. But he was a captain in at Ohio State, which is a big deal. To be a leader of such a dominant team. So he impressed me, just his talking. He was a very confident person. He seemed, you know 22-ish or 23-ish going on 30. He was just really cool demeanor. Um, but the one person that I wanted to point out. Oh, there. I was trying to figure out who was the last person as the names went by the screen. Jay Ward, LSU. Again, he's another person that is versatile. He played at pretty much every DB position, so that'll be somebody that we can keep our eyes out for as well. We know that McDermott likes the people that can play multiple positions, and he's definitely another one of those guys that can play. And again, these are guys that we saw at the Senior Bowl. So at pick 27, are we going to pick one of these guys? Probably not. There is a good opportunity. There are definitely other safeties that I would have on my board before these guys. But I think that these guys definitely have improved their draft stock. I do see a couple of them going maybe end of the first, but most likely second round, third round. They have definitely upped their stock that way. The last name I see going, well, second to last, Anthony Johnson. He actually had a pick during practice and during the game, and the one during the game was a pick six. So his name has definitely been flashing. A lot of people have been talking about him over the past week. So and again, I'm gonna have my favorites because the ones I got to talk to are gonna definitely stick out a little bit more.
Right.
But
How was the
we're
how
gonna
was the physicality? How was the physicality of practices? How did they get after it? Did they hook it up? Were they in full pads every
yeah.
day? Shells?
Um,
What did
it
they?
was
How was the physicality of the thing?
it was pretty crazy. But the guys hyped it up. So, if people seem to be bringing it down a notch, I went on Thursday and I was sitting pretty much. I was sitting by myself, but there was two guys behind me, and they were making a comment that they don't seem to be as into it as they have been the last 2 days. Blah blah blah. Well, then they do this one drill where they line up on both sides of pretty much the hash marks, national team, American team. And they do these one-on-one drills. Well, the first people get out there and, at this point you can't even see the players themselves because there's like a wall on both
Right.
hashes. And all of a sudden you hear someone get drilled and everyone goes, whoa. And everyone on the line, I actually have a video and I'll actually post it to Twitter. Everyone in the two lines, they just got hyped up and they're all screaming and everyone's, going crazy. And practice changed. The second you heard that
Right.
hit and like it was, obviously something spectacular happened. Um, they just went and it was like a light switch went off and they changed how they were going about the practice. So definitely I think there are people that realize that they need to they need that they have eyes on them the whole time. So you know whether or not everyone else was kind of letting their guard down, the two players that went at it were like, nope, we're not going to let our guard down. We're just going to go out there and be us. And it like I said, it changed the whole dynamic of that practice. So the physicality was there. I think that there might be some concerns. There was a couple of injuries. Like I said, Roshan Johnson, broke a bone in his hand. Um, Dewan Jones, I think his was more of an illness, but he was out there the first day and most of the second day, but then didn't go past that. Um, so I think I heard his was an illness. So people get a little nervous that there's going to be you're going to get injured and that's going to ruin your draft stock as well. But yeah, for the most part, yeah, you heard them going hard at times. So that was fun.
Yeah, it's funny how those things happen. I mean, obviously everybody's trying to get drafted higher. Everybody's trying to get noticed, and one of the best ways and easiest ways in football anyway to get noticed is to bring that physicality
Yep.
to practice. So that's cool. I'm glad you got to experience it. Um, Combine wise, I have no problem watching the combine on TV. Um, I think it'd be great to go, but to be honest with you, You can only watch so many 40s. You can only watch so many vertical jumps. To
Yeah.
me, it gets a little mundane over time. But it's another one. I mean, it's another pressure cooker on these guys. It's another. I think these events, and I think what people, it goes back. There's a lot of coaches that coach this way. There's a lot of coaches that do things like this. It also happens with these evaluation events. It's how does a person react to stress? And I think that the biggest thing that they do with these events with the players are they really put them in stressful spots, and they try to create stress and chaos to see how they come along and perform. And it's one of those things, Sarah, where um, if you can perform in that type of an arena, then you can perform you know anywhere. You can be in,
Yeah.
anything can happen in the game and you can be fine. So that's another thing they're trying to evaluate. But that's great. I'm glad you got to do it. We will talk about the combine. We'll talk about that coming up. Who's getting invites and all those different things. Some
Yeah.
evaluations.
So
Um,
quickly, I
and
just
all that.
wanted to go through the just a couple of names on offensive line because I know we're all pretty excited to hopefully revamp our offensive line. Names that stood out to me: John Michael Schmidt was crazy all week. Like, I mean, all week. There was not a down moment for him. Cody Mouch, which you mentioned, him. I was looking forward to meeting him, just because you talked about him the week before. He is a guy, red hair, no teeth, no front teeth, big guy, and was controlling everything all week long. He definitely upped his stock. Some people have him going in the first. I don't like it. I think that we could definitely wait to the second. I just don't know if it would be for him. I think that he's kind of in the betweens. Between our first pick and our second pick, unfortunately. And then Osiris Torrance. He I got to speak to him as well. He, talked about putting on weight and now needing to probably lose it at the next level. He was another one that was pretty much stout his whole time. He's a big guy. Dewan Jones was great in practice, but we obviously didn't get to see him play in the game. And then my wow moment was Matthew Bergeron from Syracuse. He opened up a beautiful it was a run play, and he opened up a hole, and Tajay Spears ended up scoring on the play. It was just perfect, the way he created the hole, and it was all him. It was definitely leverage. You can see, I tweeted out the video. Very, very, very good play. So those are some names, obviously, that I look forward to seeing, hopefully in a one or two of them in a Bills uniform. Running backs, Tajay Spears just literally was the show. He was, every single day in practice, he was the running back that everyone was talking about. Um, I think that during the game, Chase Brown and Eric Gray. They were the two that a lot of people were making comments about. I still love the idea of Chase Brown. If I think that it kind of goes up between him and Roshan Johnson for me, as a different kind of change of pace to Cook. I don't think that Singletary will be back, so I think that we definitely need to look at running back. I just don't think it'll be in the first round. Now, if Bijan Robinson ends up being available at 27. I doubt it, but if it happens, I think that he is going to make an impact on a team. So I would say it's not a reach. He'll probably be way off the board before then, but he was not at Senior Bowl. He didn't need to be at the Senior Bowl, but I definitely look forward to him. And then other than that, wide receiver is the one that, the other one that everyone's talking about. Michael Wilson, from Stanford. He has only played, I think, 6 games in the last couple of years. So he needed to show out, and he did. He was on, everyone's radar. He had a great showing. Jaden Reed was another one. And then everyone called him Tank. Nathaniel Dell, he was also another one. that everyone was talking about during the week. I personally still love Hutchinson, so I am looking forward to seeing if we can get him maybe a little bit later out of Iowa State. I think he's the perfect size. Kind of reminds me, of I don't want to say thinned out. He's one of those guys that he runs routes a lot like Diggs does, but he's a little taller and got a little bit more body mass to him. So for him to be that big, and it's not really big, but he's 6'2", but for him to be that big and still running routes I saw him running routes, I'm intrigued. So those are pretty much my picks, going into the draft. Obviously, we'll find out who we get in free agency, and then we have the people that are not in the Senior Bowl that we'll be able to look at a little bit more after the combine. And I can't wait to do our first mock draft to see who we can end up with.
Well, my shirt says Trench Mafia. We're going to talk a lot about the trenches when we talk about this Super Bowl in a minute. But as far as the Bills go, and by the way, great evaluation of the players that you saw at the Senior Bowl, especially those DBs and also the offensive line. But I for one, we've got to build our line back where it needs to be. We've got to get our offensive line where it needs to be. And the other area of concern, and you talked about both of them, one being the O-line, the other one is our safeties. We're going to have to find safeties because we're going to lose one, probably two, and they're both stars. And if that's the case, we're going to need to bolster that area as well. So we'll get more into that. I think this draft is extremely valuable in the middle rounds. I think you can get a ton of talent at O-line in the middle rounds and some other areas in the middle rounds. I'm not sure that there's just those bona fide. So there's not as many bona fide first round superstars, I don't think, in this draft. But there's a lot of really, really good productive football players we'll be able to get a hold of later. So let's shift to the Super Bowl. What everybody
Yes,
wants to
sir.
talk about. Obviously, Super Bowl tonight in Arizona. Is
I
Spence
should
going to
be
be out
there.
there? Is Spence going to be out there with Rihanna at the at halftime?
I'm sure he wishes.
Spence, if you're the surprise guest, everybody's trying to figure out who the surprise guest is going to be with Rihanna. Some are saying it's going to be Eminem. Some are going to be. I think it's going to be Spence.
There you
They're going to
go.
drop Spence from the roof of the. They're going to drop Spence from the roof of the dome, and he will be in Rihanna's halftime show. But anyway, well, actually, Spence in the comments said she's coming over after
After.
the
Yeah.
Super Bowl. But anyway, Eagles -1.5. I think this shapes up to be a tremendous game. There's a lot of things to look at, Sarah. But I'm going to be honest with you. I think it really, all these different areas you can talk about, and we will in a second. But really, this is what it comes down to. Do you have the guts? Do you have the intestinal fortitude? Do you have the cojones to bet against Patrick Mahomes? Because this is
I
what it's
I
about to
do.
me. This is the Eagles versus Mahomes. I watch Mahomes game after game after game will these guys to victory. And believe me, it's funny. I've looked at a lot of national picks. I've looked at a lot of guys, respected guys that break down games, and every one of them, amazingly, are picking. A lot of them are picking the Chiefs, and a lot of them are saying the same things. And they all say I'm an idiot if I pick against Patrick Mahomes. And
Yeah.
convince me why we should.
Um well, I'm probably the idiot.
I
And
believe me, I'm gonna give my pick away. I'm an idiot too, but go ahead.
yeah. I honestly think that Philadelphia is overall more of a well balanced team. I think that they have stars at pretty much every position. Um, and I think that it's a team versus one player. Um, I honestly think that Philadelphia is, like I said, they're I'm stumbling over the reasons why, because there's a part of me that is also saying that I'm probably a fool too, because I don't want the Chiefs to win. Um, and it is Mahomes, but I do honestly think that with Hurts being healthy, with their running game, and granted, Kansas City has stepped up. Their defense is, has stepped up. Chris Jones, Frank Clark, I'm I have no problems, with the way that the Chiefs defense has been playing as of late. But for the most part, they got ran over most of the year, and I think that that's going to continue. I think Sanders is and Hurts are going to destroy them. Um, and if they do, I think that they're going to keep the ball out of Mahomes' hand, and I think that that's the key to victory. Is obviously control the timing. The biggest thing also is going to be turnovers. They have to make sure that they, don't turn the ball over and protect Hurts at all costs. Again, Jones and Clark have had really good years, and they've been getting to the quarterback. So now, you're testing basically Philadelphia's line, which I think is one of the better lines in the NFL, to make sure that Hurts remains clean. And if not, then it's going to be Hurts, hopefully healthy enough to get out of the pocket and to make something happen with his legs.
You look at this game, and there's so many things you can talk about. You can talk about Andy Reid against Nick Sirianni. Andy Reid, the consummate head coach, multiple years in the league, multiple Super Bowl appearances, a Super Bowl champion, against a guy who has had one single season of success, that tends to run hot, that tends to have rabbit ears, and loses his cool a little bit. Is he going to be able to stay focused, be patient, and do those things in the biggest game of the year, where there is a ton of stress and there is a ton of chaos? You look at this, it's almost kind of like a UFC fight. Like last night was UFC 284. This is the undercard. That's the first of 5 fights. Then you talk about the Chiefs O-line versus the Eagles O-line. And the Eagles O-line, that when Lane Johnson plays, I think is probably the best in the NFL. Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Jason Kelsey, who probably ends up in the Hall of Fame, Isaac Siamato, and Lane Johnson. Then the Chiefs O-line, Andrew Wiley, who amazingly teams can rework offensive lines and can stay better and get better and have success. Wiley's the only holdover from their Super Bowl offensive line the last time they went. Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, Joe Tooney, and then you got Brown on the other side, Orlando Brown Jr. You got that matchup. You got Holmes versus Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is playing at a MVP level, which is amazing to me, and that just goes to show you what Sirianni and then I'll use your line, the offensive coordinator from the Philadelphia Eagles have done for.
I'm not going to try to pronounce his name. I am not.
Done for him, and so it's going to be a tremendous matchup. I think the keys come down to red zone success. When you're in the red zone in games like this, you have to score touchdowns, right, Sarah? I mean, you got to do it. You got to put points on the board. It's kind of what bit the Bills a little bit later in the season. Their red zone went away. Eagles got to score touchdowns. Here's another thing that's amazing to me. 78 sacks by the defensive line of the Philadelphia Eagles, like 20-some more sacks than the next closest team in the NFL. That's tremendous pressure put on the opposing quarterback. I don't know. I know they've had an extra week to heal. I still think Mahomes is not going to be 100%. I don't believe Jalen Hurts is anywhere near 100%.
Yeah. I still think that I was going to say, I still think that the two best teams, and it pains me to say it, but the two best teams are finally in the Super Bowl together.
Yes, that's a great point. Yep.
And I think that that's why there are some people that are struggling to determine who's going to win this game, and why that the point spread is so low. It could have been a pick. It literally could have been a pick 'em with no spread. In my opinion, it's pretty that much evenly matched up. Again, though, I still think that Philadelphia overall is just a twinge better. It's just whether or not they can put all the pieces together out on the field. So
Right, and the Eagles, they bring in Nick Fangio this week to help them sign him to a 2-week contract to help them prep for this game. Um, Eagles do have an advantage rushing the football. I think they run the ball very, very well. So there's so many things that it's so similar, and it's going to come down. I think it's really going to come down to quarterback play. It's going to come down to quarterback play. It's going to come down to turnovers. This is really a game of what it's all about. I don't think you can really get into too much. And really, I mean, for every advantage you find for the other team, you can find something else for the other team. But it's, like I said, it's like
yeah,
UFC 284. It's O-lines, D-lines, quarterbacks, head
yep.
coaches. And I like the Eagles by 3 points.
Yeah. So
That's it.
you just made the comment that that it comes down to quarterback play. I actually agree, but I think that it comes down to quarterback play because of the line play. I think that if Philadelphia's defense can get to Mahomes with Mahomes not being 100%, I feel like he's going to get sacked 4 or 5 times, and I think that that's going
Right.
to alter the shape of the game. So it'll be interesting to watch it. I'm actually excited. Usually I get in my head a little bit and like the Bills aren't in it. I don't, care. I'm just watching it for the commercials.
Right.
But I'm actually looking forward to it. I want to see, was Philadelphia's season a little bit of a fluke or not? I'm intrigued, so I'm looking forward to it. And like I said, I do think Philadelphia is going to win. And I have it 28-27. So I only have it as a 1 point. So I actually don't have them covering the actual spread. But I do have Philadelphia winning. So all right, we're gonna get going. We definitely have a long slate of shows coming up today. We have another show coming up at 1 p.m. and another show coming up at 2. So we have the chop up coming up next, and then at 2 p.m. we have Hump Day. So everyone should tune in. And Jerry, do you want to take us out?
Yeah, we can do that. For Sara Larson, I am the Big O Jerry Ostroski. Thanks for listening to the 3-Man Rush, which soon will have a new name because
Yes.
there's only
Oh, I
2 of
forgot.
us.
Yes, I forgot
So
to.
I'll do it real quick.
Yes.
Very, very soon, be on the lookout for the new name will be the Line to Gain Show.
Yes.
And it'll be with Sara Larson and myself, the Big O Jerry Ostroski. And we'll be bringing you the same great content, all the same information, just with a different banner, a different moniker, different name, and all that. Because
Yeah.
if you can count, folks, there's only
There's only
2 of
two
us
of us.
now. There's not 3. So, hey, for Sara, I'm the Big O Jerry Ostroski. We'll be back next week with more right here on the Buffalo Rumblings Network. And have a great day, folks. Enjoy the game. One love.